just very brief, just really briefly, I was born and raised in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to California when I was 11, went to San Francisco, and a year later moved down here to the Long Beach area. Been here ever since.
Okay.
So,
So your childhood, right, around, what's like the time frame of that? Like maybe between the time you were like 10 to late 20s. Well, what time period is that?
that would be 1960. Well, I came here when I was 11, so that was 1963.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, a year later from San Francisco down here ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of calculate that.
Okay.
You know.
So the fondest memory that you have growing up, would you say, during what time period would that be? Like in your youth, would that be like around what time is that like?
My fondest memory. That's going to be
Tough, yeah.
really tough because I had a tough upbringing.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of fondness,
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sound crazy. So I was the only child in my parents' marriage, but I have 20 siblings. Okay, so my parents have married and remarried and had kids, but in their marriage they just had me. So I have younger brothers and sisters, and I have older brothers and sisters, right? So I was bounced around quite a lot, and then before I started self-identifying as gay, most of my life was pretty much one problem after the other, because I was a product of divorce and blah, 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 blah. So really, you talk about fond memories, I like going to school, and I did very well, And the reason why I like going to school is because I had no problems there. It was all fresh, it was all new. I felt like I was wanted. I felt like someone saw me, so to speak, right? So that was my escape, so to speak. And so all of my childhood memories really revolved around school.
So what time period was this? You going to school? It was around, like you said, the 60s, or?
Okay, so I was born in 1952.
Oh, okay.
I'm 73.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so.
I would never have guessed.
Yeah, thanks, genetics.
Yeah.
So I was in school 5 to 7. 1957, I was in preschool, right? And that's where it all started, right? So I went to preschool, elementary school, elementary up to the 5th grade in Hawaii. Went to San Francisco, spent my most of my 5th grade there, and then coming down to LA, 6th grade and up. So that's the environment I was in. That need to like school continued all the way, really all throughout my educational life. I've been to college, and so I have fond memories more in my teens and adult than my childhood, because my childhood was pretty much, I had a very dysfunctional family. We grew up very poor on top of it all, so I don't really have any fond memories childhood wise,
Okay.
If you want to talk about one instance of that, I can remember right before, we did have Christmas trees. It was really kind of weird being in Hawaii to have a Christmas tree because we don't have snow. There's snow, but not where people live.
Yeah.
I remember laying down under the Christmas tree and looking up into the tree, and got fascinated with all the twinkling, the lights, and then all the reflection of we had fake trees. We didn't have real trees because my parents, if they're gonna have a tree, they want it to last forever. So we had plastic trees, but in those days, right, trees were made out of cellophane, right? So you had pink trees, blue trees, white trees, purple trees. We always had a green tree, but the reflection of the lights on the cellophane kind of gave me like a little starlit world under
wow.
there. And I would lay under there for hours at a time.
Yeah.
You know, just enjoying that. You know, and that had to stop because once my mom put ornaments on the tree, we couldn't go in the tree.
Yeah, and she didn't want one falling on your head.
Well, they just didn't want the ornaments to be broken because in those days you didn't have,
Yeah.
you know, you had what do you call those metal ornaments that break?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they weren't made out of plastic; they were made out of
Yeah.
glass,
Mhm.
glass ornaments. So
Yeah.
that's why you couldn't go under the tree anymore.
So, how long have you identified with your community?
I always knew that I was different.
Mm-hmm.
On top of it all, I always knew that I was different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all my childhood friends were normal guys. I wasn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I played sports with everybody because you had to.
Mm-hmm.
You would be bullied to death and probably killed if you didn't participate in sports. But on my own time, I liked doing things that most of the other kids didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that continued on in school,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so when I was around 9 or 10, I realized that I was watching a lot of gladiator movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I realized I was watching a lot of male-dominated movies.
Mm-hmm.
The women made no interest. I had no interest in it, but the guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I liked watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had friends, they were just, I liked being with guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of made it different because everybody else was mixed. You know, in the community you have mixed genders and all that. But for some reason, I just went after I like having guys as my friends,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was in junior high school here in the Carson area, I had my first boyfriend. I've had girlfriends, don't get me wrong, I had girlfriends all through up until graduation from high school. I always had girlfriends because that's what you had to do.
They weren't romantic, or were they romantic?
No, there were things that I had to do.
Yeah. Okay, I'm asking.
Because that's you had to do it. You had to have a girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I had my first boyfriend in junior high school, you know, on the slide, and we were boyfriends all the way through high school,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But we both had girlfriends, you know. When we went to dances, we went as two couples. Always, it was just really, really kind of weird, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really self-identify being gay because I didn't know what gay was,
Mm-hmm.
even throughout that junior high and high school experience.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to identify it. Now, in growing up in that environment, the word for gay, the word for faggot in Hawaii is mahu. Okay, and we're always calling each other mahu just out of spite, or we wanted to denigrate somebody else, right? Nowadays, mahu is taken back. You know, the culture is bringing back mahu and reclaiming that word and that connotation, to be a more positive experience for LGBTQ people, right? So, so even though I did not know what was going on, I also was very well aware that, you know, when someone even in a minuscule way called me mahu and tried to attack me for the feminine side of myself, right? Because I wasn't really butch, but I was kind of I was kind of fat too on top of it, right? So, you know, any assault on my feminine side, right, was very painful. Was very hurting, right? So when I graduated from high school, I decided that maybe maybe one of the reasons why I wasn't happy is because my world was pretty much straight, right? I had a few gay friends, very few, and then I had some allies who knew that I was gay because, they asked, right? And they didn't treat me any differently.
This was in high school.
This was in high school. But when I graduated from high school, I decided that maybe one of the reasons why I'm so miserable, right? Don't get me wrong, I have happy moments too, but in my head, because we're talking about this, my yearning for love and romance and all that was not there. I had girlfriends. I had a boyfriend who was in the closet too, so there wasn't really much there either. You know what I mean? But it's the beginning of something. So I decided that when I graduate from high school, I'm going to make a concerted effort, a mindful effort, to get gay friends, reverse it, going from 90% straight, 10% gay to 90% gay and 10% straight.
Yeah.
And I made that a point. So in college gave me a chance to do that. And I found myself a little bit more liberal, more positive in the way I looked at life, right? And plus, I don't know how it is, being with other gay people, we didn't have to explain things. So it was neat. You were being seen, you were being respected, you were being maybe not accepted, but at least respected. Because being different, being gay as being different as being gay with other gay people wasn't a problem anymore, right? So then I started feeling a lot more reaffirmed, After college, then going into the workforce, then it started all over again, right? Because gays were not accepted. Guys, when companies found out that you were gay, you lost your job, or you've been ostracized. The center here was just kind of neat for a lot of people who, when they come out, a lot of their parents disinherit them. A lot of their friends drop them, so they need a place to go. So the center is one of the neat places to be for these people who are just coming out, because it gives them a chance to belong.
Yeah, and I think you raise an interesting point there, because one of the most fascinating things about this study is how queerness is handled in different cultures, right? So being Hawaiian, right, I didn't realize there was such a masculine protection that a lot of men had.
What's interesting? A lot of people think Hawaii is a wonderful, multicultural, accepting, under the rainbow environment. Well, it's not. In my book, this is just me talking, it's one of the most racist places in the world. Because Hawaii is everybody came to Hawaii, just like everybody comes to the United States. There were no indigenous people in Hawaii. They had to come there from Polynesia, right? Later on, you had Chinese coming, you had Japanese, you had Filipinos coming, because everybody had to serve the sugar plantation, the pineapple plantations during the late 1800s and early 1900s. And so you had all these cultures coming in, and they all brought their baggage. One of the baggage they brought was their attitudes toward men versus women. There was definitely a gender divide, and you had to fall into those old school. Okay, I'm 73. I'm talking, 40s and 50s here.
Yeah.
Right. Totally different environment than it is today. It's a little bit more relaxed now in Hawaii, but in those days, you had all these cultures that were so defining, so restrictive of what you can or cannot do being a boy or being a girl. You can't. You're one or the other. But if you're a Mahu, everybody hated you. Right?
Yeah.
You weren't straight enough, or you weren't gay enough. Right? So yeah. So the cultures that I was exposed to all of them had very anti-homosexuality opinions and agendas and outlook. And on top of that, there is the pulpit, which is, in my book, one of the reasons why the gay community, the LGBT community, suffers so much, is because of the pulpit, right?
Would you care to explain what the pulpit is for people?
Organized religion.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, born out, my father was Filipino, my mother was Puerto Rican. Very common mixture in Hawaii. So very Catholic laden. So, you know, the whole thing about the Catholic Church being anti-gay, you know, you really don't, I really don't want to get into it, but
Sure.
but it is so anti-gay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have in Hawaii, you have the Portuguese, same thing, right? You have the Japanese with their form of cult, their kingdom
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So the Japanese, the Chinese, you know, and then then you have the missionaries coming in. So you had all the whites coming in to Hawaii with their Bible thumping agendas, right? You know, they outlawed the hula.
I didn't know that.
They had the missionaries convinced the monarchy to outlaw the hula of all things, the hula,
The
right?
dance, yeah.
Right. And in those days, the dances aren't kind of like the dances they are now. Now the hula is like something sexual and sensual. But that's not what it was in those days. It was basically warrior chants, and basically, you know, they didn't have a written culture. Everything was oral. So they had the hula is basically a way of communicating, right, about their history. And so with the missionaries and the white culture came the missionaries, you know, and you know, you have all these Baptist Bible thumping and Protestant religions coming into the state, into the territory, excuse me, right, with all the anti-gay this and all that hate, right, and then later on, you know, the born again movements, you know, from the 60s on and up now, funded by the Mormons, funded by the evangelicals, all anti-gay. So this is for a gay person in Hawaii, for Mahu in Hawaii, from the entire 1900s, was very oppressive. You know, so it's very difficult to try to be gay when you have this whole environment that wants you dead.
Of course, and I would imagine like a lot of people bear those scars and they carry them into their adulthood, you know, so redefining yourself is one of those things that people struggle with, you know, as they get older, which leads me to one of my questions now here, and it's like the community you're in now, here in Long Beach, at the center. This center here is a place where people of the queer community can come to get queer services, right?
Correct.
Services such as?
Well, right now it's primarily a health clinic type environment because of what happened during the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s, right? So the center has went from a social support type, you know, service center, so to speak, where people came here to socialize, and then also to learn about our activism, that things that were happening here in LA and New York in terms of the gay movement, but during the AIDS crisis, because of how that affected our community, this really became more of a health center. Right now, it's gradually becoming, I would say, 80-20 medical versus social. Right. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 20-something groups that meet here regularly, social groups that meet here regularly, and it covers the whole range of gay peoples, whether you're gay, lesbian, transgender, queer, you know, blah blah blah, and so now and as people find these groups, the center has become more of a social support environment and political versus health, right?
Okay, and these are pretty diverse, would you say? Like
absolutely.
People of all walks of life, different cultural backgrounds, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, what part of the city specifically have you noticed changed the most in Long Beach? Would you say in
terms of what?
In terms of queer progress, I'm assuming, you know, it's only been less accepting the further back you go. The more progressive things become. 2025 now, we have a higher community that has always existed, right? But is now out in the open, I'd say, right?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. We've always been here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, queer peoples have always been around.
Yeah.
It's just that based on society, whether or not they're going to be visible or not.
Yeah.
Right. So as far as Long Beach is concerned, when I moved to Long Beach, it was in 1975, and I moved to Long Beach because Long Beach had at the time, through our own underground networking, Long Beach had a lot of gay places and gay things to do. When I came down here, I counted. There were 29 gay affirming spaces, whether it was the bars or the baths or community centers or churches. You know, like some of the churches were real neat gay allies, right? But everything was still pretty much very, very cloaked in shame, and you know, you couldn't hold hands in Long Beach. Guys couldn't hold hands. Women could, but gay guys couldn't hold hands, and you can now. So when the center started, it became it gradually grew and became a focal point for the community. It established a gay presence. You couldn't help it because this is where people came to get information. And then later on for health services, which even, you know, made it more important. And then offshoots of groups that started through the years, you know. I'm not going to say that the center started everything, but it pretty much started the groundwork of gay people coming into the Long Beach area. So I think the center was pretty much the focal point for the gay community, definitely in the 80s, throughout the 80s.
Interesting. And what spaces since then, since the 80s, have been lost? Because I recently, the last interview I conducted with a friend of mine, they had told me that there was a lesbian bar that was sold and became a new bar called Que Sera. I was wondering if you might know of other places that have been bought out or that just aren't around anymore.
Okay, so the bars, the predominant gay bar in Long Beach in the 70s and 80s was Ripples.
Ripples, okay.
On the coast, on Granada. And that was a regular bar, but it blossomed into a disco. Because, you know, disco was getting big in the 70s, right? Everybody had to go dance, right? And we had several dance bars in Long Beach that are no longer around. We had country bars, we had regular disco bars, and then we had the bars divided by gender, right? So you had gay bars and you had lesbian bars, right? The two prominent lesbian bars was Que Sera, and also the Executive Suite. Okay, and those were the two, really the only two bars, but they were big bars, right? But Long Beach had a whole bunch of them along the Broadway corridor and along Ocean Boulevard and along the Redondo corridor, right? Come and going, but and then we also had the leather scene in North Long Beach. There were 4 or 5 bars up there. You know, they were catering towards the leather scene, and also Latino POC bars, because most of the bars down here were frequented by white people, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there is racism within our community, which drives me crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? There's even homophobia in our community, which drives me even more crazy, right? Because how can that be what it does? So the AIDS scare didn't really affect the bars, but it did affect the bath community, the tub queens, right? Long Beach had a I'm not mistaken, had 5 or 6 bathhouses. They're all gone. AIDS just cut all that,
Wow.
like the rest of LA.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? And so during that period of the early to mid 90s, when the AIDS scare was really, really crazy and intense. So a lot of these bars closed down because they weren't being frequented anymore, right? Because guys didn't know what was happening. Everyone was scared. You know, the AIDS scare was devastating to gay businesses because people didn't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there were all these stupid rumors about how they got it, and which made everybody scared to go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Until we finally, you know, in the 90s, finally science got around to coming up with cocktails, blah blah blah, and so people were not scared anymore. So the bar scene slowly started getting back up again, but it was never the same. Right. COVID didn't help. COVID made it worse. Right. So those 29 gay spaces right now, I'm saying maybe they're 20.
20. Okay.
Right, and that's everything. That's gift shops. That's bars.
Yeah.
Right. That's the centers, the community centers. You know, that's how much it's shrunk. But what is left is very important and thriving. No, so for Long Beach to have a gay pride, right? I keep telling guys that come to this group here at the center, enjoy what you have, because we live in a bubble here, right?
Yeah.
You go outside of California, there are very few places. Well, the big cities, of course, but the secondary cities and the tertiary cities, they don't have pride, right? So I keep telling you, enjoy what you have, because this is not this really is not common.
Yeah.
You know.
So that actually, you lead me to another one. I like your segues. Experiences of discrimination and acceptance. So Long Beach, pretty much like you said, is a bubble. So kind of a safe haven, pretty much. How has it been like discriminatory, like here, like the history of that? How has that been? Was there ever any discrimination that you personally have felt? I know you described like your childhood, your upbringing, you kind of being a bit like more in the closet about things, but openly, has that ever been observed here?
So, one of my first experiences standing in line, getting into Ripples, this is like in, I would say, 1975, 1976. It was commonplace for, as discos got popular, they drew large crowds.
Okay.
It was very popular on a Friday and Saturday night for all these college kids coming in from Huntington Beach, driving around up and down Ocean and throwing bottles at us, throwing grenades, not grenades, but Molotov cocktails at us, throwing rocks at us, you know, and bashing in cars. They would see guys coming out of the cars. You could tell we were gay because we were more fashionable than they were, right? You know, we had our bell bottoms, blah blah blah, and so there was a look, and guys would be driving around in their cars. And then when they see a car where two guys come out, they would wait, and when they disappeared, they would bash their cars in. Right? So that's one form of discrimination overtly. Yeah. During the early AIDS years, a lot of the hospitals here wouldn't accept AIDS patients. The doctors refused to work with. Once they found out that you had that AIDS cancer, you know, that gay cancer, they didn't touch you. And when the doctors did allow patients, the nurses wouldn't do it. I mean, overtly wouldn't touch gay and anybody who wasn't gay but came with AIDS. It was more an AIDS thing, but it was more gay because more gays had it than not gays. That too. There were restaurants here in that time of the 70s, right, that wouldn't serve gays. You talk about, because Long Beach was very conservative. It was pretty much Iowa by the sea, right? Because a lot of used to have these picnics where people came from Des Moines, Iowa, and they settled in Long Beach, and they would have these big picnics. It was very, very old school, very, very conservative, right? And in the meantime, you also had the Navy base here on top of it all, right? So you had a lot of not gay-friendly places to be and people to socialize with. A lot of businesses here because of aerospace and because of the airport and because of the military here. If they found out that you were gay, you would lose your job, like that. Aside from AIDS, being gay.
Yeah, I think they call that like the lavender. I forgot the name of that word.
Well, there was a lavender scare.
Lavender scare.
There's pretty much more of a Washington thing, more of a government thing, but it filtered into businesses, right? And so a lot of the guys were, we have, the South Bay, which is not part of Long Beach is not part of the South Bay, but I think it is, okay, because we're along the beach, right? A lot of military, a lot of aerospace, a lot of military, and so a lot of these guys, to keep their job, they had to act straight, they had to be straight, they had to have girlfriends, right? And because you couldn't do that, even when Boeing had their own gay caucus, their own gay group organization to make it easier for gay people to work and be open at work, a lot of the guys didn't want to be part of it because they were afraid of losing their job anyway. And when the guys on the assembly line found out that you were gay, they made it very difficult for you to do your job, right? So
Okay. So that's definitely. I did not know about that, about the Iowa migration of people here. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, they called this Des Moines by the Sea, by the way.
Des Moines
That's
by
how
the
it was.
So in terms of traditions like going on now, of course, Pride Month has become kind of like a staple now that we celebrate yearly. I forget when we started celebrating Pride Month, but
here in Long Beach?
Yeah,
1983.
1983
was when I think it's 82 or 83. We had our first. Long Beach had its first gay parade. Very small. Bible thumpers all over the place. It was not a short. It was just a short walk, and it was basically cars, right, instead of floats. And then when the walk was over, we all hit the bars on Broadway, or the bars. That was the beginning of our Pride. Right, and then it later on developed into the festival that it is. Pride was I don't know if it is anymore, particularly now with administration that we're dealing with right now. But Long Beach Pride was the second most attended event in Long Beach, next to the Grand Prix.
Okay.
For years and years and years and years and years, and a lot of corporate sponsorships, which have now dissipated because of the anti-DEI programs and LGBTQ people are DEI.
So this has been maintained by in part through organizations such as this one, the community and everything. So you guys have had to adapt in many ways, I would assume, right? Like how would you say is one of those ways this community has adapted and allowed itself to kind of not revert back to how things were in like the 70s and 60s?
The first thing that comes to my mind is we have a lot of gay businesses here. So we have restaurants that were owned by gays and lesbians that were and still are straight friendly.
Okay.
Right? We didn't really have gay restaurants. We had coffee shops like Hot Java, always been owned by gay people, catering to the gay community, even though the community at large, we need our allies. We can't do it on our own. Okay, so gay business owners are smart to understand that concept that we need non-gays to survive, right? So there are a lot of businesses here owned by gay people, and that power, right? When you see a flag in a window, that that makes a statement, and it's kind of like a beacon for gays to understand that there's a sense of community here, right? And then you know, right now it's all concentrated along the Broadway corridor. They call it the Gay Gulch, basically, you know, and on through. It used to go all the way through Belmont Shore, but that stopped during that right before COVID. But so gay businesses gave us a chance to do things for the community, by the community, right? Like the festivals. We have a Q Film Festival here. It started with one of the guys out of my group, out of Men's Rep. Yeah, Robert Kane, wonderful guy. You know.
Look at it.
And so that wouldn't have happened had we not had the center, had the center not had its people.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So there was a time when Long Beach had 3 gay yacht clubs, right, and a couple of lesbian yacht clubs who didn't do this, but they did their own thing, right? It's very, very clubby, you know, and my boyfriend and I, years back, we bought a boat, and we were immediately, I don't know how word got around that we had a boat, but they approached us and said, "You want to join us?" And I said, "No, we don't want to join you, but we'll support your parties." It was lots of fun, you know. But 3 gay yacht clubs? I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I always tried to get them to pour some of that generosity into the center, but they had to do their own thing. That's okay, you know. The country western bars here, there were 3 here in Long Beach.
Yeah.
They're gone now, but they supported, you know, the gay rodeo in Los Angeles, you know, and so they always had their fundraisers here in Long Beach to help support the gay rodeo in Los Angeles, you know. So again, you know, that was another way of adapting to everyone's so-called needs. Long Beach has always had a Leather Levi presence, right? It started up with a bar in North Long Beach. It was called Woody's at the time. And Woody's turned into business, Woody's has evolved into different names and different clienteles, but it's predominantly Leather Levi, right? And so with that came these fundraisers to help, how am I going to say this? To help the leather community do their thing, right? So how am I going to say this? So there are a lot of, I have friends who belong to the Sater Motorcycle Club, which is the oldest motorcycle club in the country, by the way. Right? And they did their events at Pistons to help the leather community do their own events, you know, things like supporting the leather tent at Pride. Okay, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the lesbians did their things too, right? So that wouldn't have happened had there not been businesses that were very present and very overt in what they were trying to do for the community.
You guys had a very secure net there.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
And as far as relationships go with other communities here, how have those things evolved? As far as you did bring up that the religious aspect of a lot of cultures tends to be where a lot of friction is for a lot of queer communities, right? So I guess when you're considering African American communities, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander, all these things, right? You guys get people of all kinds in here, but how have these things changed with those communities that I mentioned? Would you say that there is that these cultural ethnic communities, are they more accepting of their own gay queer presences that exist among them? Would you say so?
In my book, no.
No. Okay.
Okay. Because there hasn't been a reach from these religious groups to the LGBT community. Now that said, we have since through the years, especially during the AIDS crisis, There are three churches here. I don't want to say who they are because I can't remember the name, but there are three, and they have reached out to the community. They're Protestant religions, right?
Mhm.
Churches, and so they there's one on Third. I forgot what these. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
It's okay. It's okay.
But they no. I just can't remember the names.
Okay.
And so they have a congregation that's open to the LGBTQ community,
Mhm.
and for those in our community that need that and want to do that, they now have 3 churches to go to,
Mhm.
right? No Catholics, no Baptists,
Mhm.
no Mormons, no evangelicals, obviously because of their interpretation against us as a community, right? So what has happened to serve these multi ethnic communities? It starts off with groups, okay? So the center has been part of the creation of different POC groups, okay, like the AAPI group here in Long Beach basically started with people that serve the center, okay, but they're not part of the center, but there is a good how would you say it, partnership, okay, because the center is always trying to reach out to the communities. There was right. Excuse me. I forgot the Latin groups. There are 3 of them. Bienestar was one of them. Okay. Raíces Latinas and Raíces Latinos. Glue was part of this at one time, but that since severed.
Was that also Latino based?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there are groups that started that not necessarily were affiliated with places like the center or churches, but organizations onto themselves, right? That in turn supported things like Gay Pride, because Gay Pride as an organization reached out to these groups, right? So we're around, you know. I think it's really sad that how am I going to say this? You have to be separate to gain the unity, but it's a fine line of concentrating only on your own people, only on your own group, because then it looks like you're discriminating if you allow other people in.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I could see why you guys would need to define those boundaries, right, of who you're helping first, right?
Right.
Helping your own first. Yeah, I get that.
But no group would discriminate anyone from joining.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of our community, is that we try to reach out, we try to be as inclusive, but it's very difficult, you know. Let me give you a good example. Okay, so gay men love their gay bars, right? We go to the bars because we want to see other men. We want to socialize with other men. We want to be in a, quote, masculine environment, right? But in trying to reach out to our allies, we've been pretty open to women coming in. That's not a problem, right? But now it's gotten to the point that there's a bar in Palm Springs called Toucans. Toucans used to be just a normal gay bar, right? Then it became a bar for, how am I saying? They do more bachelor parties at Toucans now. It scares away the gays. It even scares away the lesbians, because they have all these straight allies doing bachelor parties in a gay bar, and they're there because of the rise and importance of the drag community, right? So they're attracted to that, and it's a party environment, which is okay. But what's happened is, are we trying to be reaching out to and being as inclusive as possible is driving away the whole part of being a gay bar, right? We are losing our gay bars. We're just becoming bars, which is one of the reasons why we are trying to get acceptance and being respected, because we want to be, we don't want to sound like we're discriminated, but we can't help that other people are invading in our spaces. It's really interesting. Straights can come into our bars and feel comfortable, right? And then we put up with it because we need them, and it helps us grow and we help us solidify our community. But you can't have gays going to straight bars. I can't hit on a guy in a straight bar. I'd be beat up, right? But girls and straight guys can't hit up on each other in a gay bar, and we're not going to do anything about it because that's, it's okay. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
So it's hard to have a gay space nowadays that's really gay. They're not. It's me. Okay, so my boyfriend likes the fact that we all are multi-gender. You know what I mean? He likes seeing women in bars. He likes seeing not just gay men in a bar. And that's what's happening in my book of what's happening with gay bars. And as gay bars disappear, the ones that survive are the ones that are inclusive to all genders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There are places in the country, in California, where in a small town there's only one bar. There's a bar in Redding, California, in the middle of Trump country. There's one gay bar, and because there's only one bar, it attracts everybody. Gays, lesbians, queers, trans, drag, everybody's in because it's only one bar. It's kind of like the model of what's happening to all the bars. Look at the Abbey. The Abbey used to be the back room of ESTU-1, which was a disco, right? Everybody went from ESTU-1 to go to the Abbey. Well, it wasn't called the Abbey then, okay, to have drinks. It was a sidebar, right? And it became a heavily gay bar. But now there's more non-gays in the Abbey than there are gays. And it's dry. You won't find other people going to the Abbey now because it's not gay. You won't find a lot of lesbians going there because it's not lesbian, right? But we'll support it because we need that, and at least we know that our community is thriving, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be a part of that.
So it's not good for you guys because it's kind of ambiguous what these bars become, right?
Yeah.
They kind of become diluted almost.
Yeah.
So, but there's a positive in that it brings people together.
It brings people together.
It brings people together, but you guys still desire a space, right? A space where you guys could all, again, like come together, gays, lesbians, having their own specific.
There's a sentiment
Yeah.
among our community. Not everybody, of course, but there's a little percentage there of gays and lesbians who resent going into their respective bar and seeing something that they don't want to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Guys, some guys, we get this topic in our men's rep quite often. When you go into a gay bar, you want to go and be with men, but you've seen everything but, especially when a bachelorette party is happening, right?
I see. So, I guess I want to close this off with maybe like a closing question for you about where do you see the future of this place here, this community? 20 years from now, where do you see yourself? To start with yourself first. Do you see yourself still working here, still in Long Beach, till the end, or do you see yourself moving out of here? And then also just the future of this place here. So start with yourself first, if you please.
Well, I live in Long Beach. I live in Redondo Beach now.
Okay,
but I lived in Long Beach for 38 years, right? So it's still home for me. I come back here because I help facilitate the men's rep here at the center. Number one, our community will always be around. There will always be gay and lesbians.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be queer people. There's always going to be a queer community. You know, it just depends on how circumstances are that allow us to be ourselves and celebrate ourselves, or the other. Right now, you know, Project 2025 is trying to eliminate us. You know, it's a slow effort, but it's happening. You see it just by, you know, saying that trans athletes can't compete anymore in the Olympics. That just happened this week.
Yeah.
Olympics said that no trans can compete in women's sports, Olympic sports. That's an example of what's happening. But the community will always be around. I mean, we've survived the Lavender Scare. Thank God for marriage equality. But even that's part of Project 2025's efforts to get rid of that too. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. I think the center, like most gay nonprofit spaces, will adapt depending on their revenue and their funding, right? And so it will change. Like I said, it used to be a social support, and then it became a health clinic because of what's happening with AIDS and STDs, and then through COVID, it became still a space for people to reach out, because we're doing. I never had a Zoom meeting until COVID, you know, and didn't like it. I think these spaces are resilient, and they can change according to to what the community wants them to be for them, right? But the bottom line is funding. This doesn't exist without revenue, you know. I think our community still will exist without, even if this disappears. I still think there will still be gathering places where we can still go to a bar. We can take over a bar. We can take over a park. We can take over a beach. We still socialize and commute, right? But places like this require constant funding. Otherwise, it's very difficult to operate. I think I'm going to say this without sounding really, really stupid. We live in an era now where it's hard to be real.